I wanted to ask you just a little bit about adverbs.
What would you like to know?
What I would like to know is, I know, you're like, wait, I just did this. Can you talk a little bit about the inspiration for those stories? How did it come to you?
I was living in New York with my wife, and she and I were on the subway, and we were having an argument, and my wife said something like, you know, I don't have to be with a guy like you, and I said, I don't have to be with someone like you, and I walked to the other end of the street of the subway car, and there was an old Chinese lady there, and I gazed at her kind of mock lovingly as a way of saying to my wife, like, I could be with this woman right here. I could leave you right now for this 75-year-old woman. Yeah, so I was sort of gesturing and staring at her, and that pretty much ended the argument. But I did begin to think about how bizarre love is, and that we end up with people who are really completely inexplicable, our preferences and what we think about them. So I just started to think about love, and then I began to write about young people, for the most part, pursuing love in all of the inexplicable ways. So the novel came from wonder about love.
That's good. In your writing about love, did you come to understand it any better?
No.
Okay.
There's no I don't no. It ends up being about how little one can understand. I think I know even less about love than I knew when I started writing a novel about love.
No, that's great. And now I wanted to ask you a little bit about the Basic 8.
Yes.
Flannery.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get inside the mind of a teenage girl?
Well, I was never a teenage girl, but I was a teenager. And when I was a teenager, somehow I was having a conversation with a teenage girl, and she said, if you ever want to know what girls are thinking, they're thinking the exact same thing that boys are thinking, except they're worried about how they look the entire time. And I always thought that was kind of a good rule of thumb, or it felt good anyway. But it always cracks me up when a man who has read the book says that you got exactly into the mind of a teenage girl. And I think, how do you know? What are you talking about?
But with the response that you've gotten, I mean, that connection. So have you seen that rule of thumb is played out to seem to be
I guess
true?
so. I mean, Flannery's kind of an unusual person. She's part of a very pretentious, kind of world-weary, ironic clique of high school students, and also she's a murderer. So she's, yeah. So I don't know how universal her appeal can be. I think that people like her as a character, and so therefore they think that she's realistic, whereas I'm not convinced she's actually a type that anyone can recognize, but I think people just like her.
How did she come to you? I mean, this is part of what I wanted to ask you with your writing process, and I know it can be a cliche question, but I am actually fascinated in it. In that, do you see, do your characters, do your books come to you? Do you see them? Do you hear them?
I'm always reluctant to talk about whether I can see or hear my characters, because I know there are writers who say, oh yes, I take a walk and I speak to my characters, and I don't do anything like that, and that kind of behavior alarms me. But I do, I think about them a lot, and I try to inhabit them. And when I was writing the Basic 8, I wrote a lot and tried to figure out what worked and how I could create this kind of world of high school that was based a lot on my own memories of high school, but also were things that were imaginary. So
what gave
just
you
worked hard
the
on it.
inspiration or the desire to create that world in the first place? Why this?
I just thought it would be interesting. I mean, and at the time, nowadays it seems talking about high school and writing about high school are kind of more well established. But when I was writing the novel, there weren't really any high school novels to look at, and I just thought it's such a poignant time in one's life. I mean, you can't get together with anyone without talking about high school for at least 5 or 10 minutes, and sometimes for hours. And I just think that it's a fascinating time. There's a lot going on, and it just seems like a great place to put a novel.
No, that's great.
So I put one there.
When did you play the accordion in high school? When did this happen? I need to know.
I took up the accordion in college because I wanted to be in a band. I'd played piano my whole childhood, but there was this kind of very brief moment in American popular music culture where no keyboard instruments were cool. It's kind of hard to imagine now because they're cool again, and they were cool for a long time, but there was kind of this very brief moment, and it was when I was in college, that no keyboard instruments were cool whatsoever, and so I took up the accordion just kind of blind. I just thought, well, that's cool. Probably something I can play, and so I went, it's closed now, but I went to the Colombo Brothers Accordion Factory in Marin, and I bought an accordion when I was on a break at school, and I learned how to play it, and I was in a band. And so I like to say I'm the only person in the history of the world who took up the accordion pretty much in order to meet women.
No, wait, this is great.
And I'm now married, so it worked.
It worked.
Check that out, Red Room. Look at that. It's real tin.
Now, wait, though, I think we're the same age. When was this? When did this occur?
It was like the late 80s to the early 90s.
Keyboard?
Yeah, I mean, I was in a band that wanted to sound like the Cowboy Junkies. No, it was when synthesizers were completely off the radar. You couldn't possibly do it.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
How hard was it, though, to go from piano to the...
Not very hard.
No?
When I play the accordion a lot, though, I develop these very odd muscles.
Accordion
kind of shoulder muscles. They're the only muscles I have. And they're... It's strange.
Did it look like you were wearing shoulder pads even though you weren't?
No, they're very, I don't know what to say. It just develops right here. And after I once had been touring for a long time with a band playing the accordion, I came home and I had my shirt off, and my wife said, like, those look like muscles, with kind of alarm, because I'd never had any kind of muscle whatsoever.
Did they give you any other advantage in life?
No, there was no other advantage in life to playing the accordion. And I'm not even sure these muscles would count as an advantage. There's no advantage. It's a delicate instrument. It's expensive. It's heavy. And I guess here's the only advantage, is that if you play the accordion, you probably play the accordion better than anyone knows. And I don't play very well. And I've gotten to play with all these bands, and it's because it's the accordion. If I played the guitar as well as I played the accordion, no one would care.
That's good. You still play sometimes, right? With
yeah, I'm going to be touring in a few months with the Magnetic Fields on their new album, and then what else? I played on this new album by Stars that just came out. It's a Canadian romantic band called Stars.
That's great. And just
it is great.
One last question I have for you for the new aspiring writers who are dying to get their voice out there.
Who are dying to get their voice out there.
To break into
to new writers who are dying. Yes. Yeah. Get a job with health insurance.
Who are yearning to get their work out there, but either discouraged, afraid to bare their soul, etc. What advice, what would you say?
Oh, I don't know if I have any advice. I have nothing but sympathy for that.
Was it
I don't think I have any advice. It was about 6 years between finishing a novel that I felt was good enough to be published and being published. But
you didn't give up.
I had no other plan. So there wasn't anything. Giving up looked exactly like continuing. There was no difference between giving up and continuing in my life. And so that's not really a long period of time as far as periods of time go. But it was, I was full of despair. And mostly, I guess, what I remember most is hating to hear vague, ambiguous advice from writers who were published. All I wanted to hear from a published writer was, even though I haven't read your manuscript, I'm certain it's brilliant, and I need your home address, because the New Yorker and Knopf both really want to get a hold of you and they can't find you. And so, because I can't say that to writers who are watching this, I will say you have my sympathy and steal paper from work.